Today on the 30, we are talking about a leadership strategy and what and why it may be the most important decision you make for this year. This is the 30. Let's get going. Well, hello there again. Welcome to the 30, a space for meaningful conversation and, of course, place designed to support you in your personal, professional, spiritual, and leadership growth. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the 30. Of course, the 30 is a production of the Jackman Group, LLC. And I want to thank you for being here once again. Do me a huge favor. Go ahead and like this episode, reshare or repost. And if you are watching from YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for doing that. I greatly appreciate it. On this episode, we are talking about something that may sound simple. It looks simple. But everything changes. This thing changes everything for a leader. And that is connection. Not networking, not being nice, not checking in once a quarter, twice a year. We are talking about real connection. And that's what this episode is about. Connection is a leadership strategy. And that's the topic of today's episode. So over the years, you know that from myself, as well as the Jackman Group, what we do is train and develop leaders. I've been in leadership roles throughout my professional as well as my ministry role. So I've been in leadership for a very long time. But what I've learned over years in leadership, as well as developing leaders, and what we see in our own training as we develop impact leaders, here's what we see. And here's what I've learned. The leaders who win long-term are they're not the smartest people in the world. They don't have to be. But here's the key. They are the most connected. Whoa, revelation. Leaders are not the smartest. Wow, they may not be. Chances are that a majority of them are not. But what they are is that they are the most connected. And connection, folks, isn't soft. Connection is strategic. And that's what we are going to be tackling and exploring on this episode. But before we move further into the discussion, I have a question for you. And I want you to really think about this and ponder on it, right? When was the last time you, as a leader, whether you are an experienced leader, tenured, or you are what I call an emerging leader, when was the last time you woke up and said to yourself, self, I need to work on connection today? When was the last time you asked yourself that, or said that to yourself, or said that to someone else? I'll give you the answer. Probably very rare, or if you've done it at all. It doesn't happen, folks. Most leaders don't say, I wake up and I want to work on a connection. What most leaders wake up and say, I need better results. I need to improve. I need stronger performance from my team. I need more buy-in from my team. I need alignment from my team. We need to hit our numbers today or this month. That's what leaders get up and start to think about, ponder. That's what they're saying to themselves or others, or even to their teams. But they never say, I need to work on connection. It's a rarity. But as opposed to focusing on incomes, the key here is that I want you to know and understand that everything that I just said in terms of I want to perform better, I want to hit my numbers, I want to have greater alignment within my team, those are what we call outcomes. But the key here is that those outcomes sit on top of connection, because you'll never achieve all those things without connection. So if your team doesn't feel seen, they won't fully commit. If people don't trust you, they won't fully follow you. If relationships are weak, execution will always be harder. So outcomes always sit on top of connection. Connection undergirds everything that we do in terms of outcomes or desired or stated goals. So that's why we want to talk about connection as a leadership strategy. It may seem very simple. It may seem, I got that. But trust me, it is not easy executed. It's not easily executed. So we all need connect to get outcomes. Connection is how we as leaders, how you as a leader, number one, build trust. Connection is how you increase clarity. Connection is how we reduce friction, how we reduce conflict. Connection create ownership and multiply our influences or influence as a leader. So connection is the key to the things that we do. It is indeed a leadership strategy. It is not a personality trait. It is not for someone who exhibit great charisma. It is not. What it is connection is and has to be intentional. So I want to be honest with you, because this is something that leaders don't understand. Some leaders don't get it, because connection can be difficult. Connection can be challenging. Depending on who you are, we do a lot with an inventory, an assessment called the SDI. And we talk about motives. So depending on your motive, you may be someone who's focused on performance. You may be someone who's focused on people. You may be someone who's focused on process. Or you may be a combination of those three core motives. So depending on your motive or your personality, connection may come easier or harder, maybe more difficult or maybe easier. But connection, if we're honest, connection takes time. It takes presence. It also takes listening more than we talk. Whoa, hold on. You're saying that I should listen more than I talk? Absolutely. If we want to make real connection, if we want to move forward and become a more impactful leader, we need to really listen more and talk less. And that's what connection is about. See, when leaders get busy, and we all are busy, well, I should say the majority of us are busy. We have a lot of things going on in our day. Some of us would want to have 30 hours in a day, but we only have 24 hours in a day. And how we use that, how we utilize that time, may be more impactful for us as leaders. But when leaders get busy, what's the first thing to go? The first thing is that we default, right? When we get busy, as opposed to engaging or connecting with others, we default to emails. As opposed to having conversation with people, we default or resort to emails or even texts. We also give directives as opposed to dialogue. So when we get busy as leaders, we don't have the connection, or we move away from the connection. We default to things that we used to do. So we speed up as opposed to building meaningful and deeper connections. And then we wonder why morale dips within our teams. Because we're not doing the things that we should be doing and connecting with others. So when the morale dip, that means alignment breaks, and people or team members or those that we're supposed to be engaged with disengage. Because as opposed to listening, we're talking, whether through text or email, as opposed to conversation. So here's the truth, folks. Connection doesn't cost you time. I'll say that again. Connection doesn't cost you time. Disconnection does. I'll say that so that it can sink in for you. Connection doesn't cost us time. Disconnection does. Think about that. Think about some of your relationships, whether it is personal or professional. Think about connection versus disconnection. When you're connected, things are flowing. When you're disconnected, now you have to take time to re-engage. So connection doesn't cost you time, disconnection does. So when leaders don't build connection, here's what happens, folks. Their decisions are questioned. Communication gets distorted. Culture that they were trying to build becomes fragmented. So we're talking about connection as a leadership strategy. And then suddenly, you're managing tension, you're managing issues, you're managing conflict instead of building momentum. Because your focus has moved away from connection. So let's talk about what connection looks like. What happens with connection? And I'm going to take a practical view about what connection can look like. What happens when we are connected? It's important to note that connection is not dramatic. It's not complicated. I don't care your personality. I don't care your motive, according to the SDI, but it's not complicated. It should not be complicated. Connection looks like this. Whether you are leading a team, whether you're involved personally in a relationship, marriage, but it's important to know that connection. Let's talk about from a team perspective. You're leading a team. And I talk about this all the time when I am training, when we are training, or if I have the opportunity to coach someone, we're training leaders or coaching individual leaders. It's important for you to know, for all of us, focus in our team, everyone on our team, it's important to know what drives our team members. What are their drivers? Whether they're motivators or demotivators, what gets them up in the morning? We're talking about connection. I see it so many times where when I ask the leader, well, tell me about this person on the team. Tell me what drives them, what wakes them, what gets them up in the morning and come to work. Well, money. Well, is it really money? Have you identified that it is money that gets them going? How much money? What are their motivators and their demotivators? And you'll be surprised that many leaders don't engage or connect with their team members. They make assumptions. And I did a piece on this, I think it was last year. Assumptions are the saboteur of effective leadership or leaders. So you can't assume that you know a team member because you have not have a discussion with them. You have not taken the time to connect with them. So that is a practical example, right? The other one is, have you asked the question about the person as opposed to making the assumption? Have you sat down and have a conversation? Leader, you need to focus on having a conversation, connecting with the person, and having a real dialogue. Not a monologue, a dialogue. And we also need to be committed to following up with the individual. Not just I'm not talking about a follow through, I'm talking about a follow up. If you said it, you're going to do something, follow up with the person. Don't just follow through. Big difference there. We also, when we're talking about building practical ways of building connection, is being clear about our expectations. The person shouldn't be guessing about what the expectation is. We should be clear about what the expectation and check in to determine or find out whether the person understand what you said. These are simple things, folks, but they're not easily done. We know we should do them, but we don't do them for whatever reason it is. We should be creating spaces for voices to be heard. Set the atmosphere where people are not intimidated by what to say. So where we have the responsibility as leaders to create space where people can voice their opinions. Creating space for voices to be heard. The connection is built in small moments, step by step by step, small moments, but it's done consistently. Connection is built in small moments, consistently, over time. So here's the key. As we begin to wrap up, here's the key. Connection is not about being liked. Now, some of us, we desire to be liked. If we're not liked, then we have a meltdown, right? It's not about that. It's not about being liked. It's about being trusted. You can be respected and be relational. You can be decisive and connected. You can hold standards and still care deeply about people. In fact, the most impactful leaders, the strongest leaders from what I've seen, what I've experienced, the strongest leaders are the ones that are both care about people and also care about the connection. So this is exactly why we, as an organization, the Jackman Group, focus so much on relational intelligence and in our training as well as our coaching. Because leadership isn't developed in isolation. It is sharpened through conversation or in conversation. It is strengthened in community. So when we talk about the connect community, that's one of the things that we're talking about. Strengthening others, bringing others together so that we can be strong, so we understand each other, so that we can build connection. See, when leaders get in a room together and talk honestly, growth starts to accelerate. And we're talking about serious growth. And folks, that's the difference between information and transformation. Here's the key to it, right? Information we can look up. We can ask Google, we can ask Siri, we can go to chat, we can go to Gemini, we can go to all these things. We can get information. But transformation happens when you're challenged, when you're supported, and when you are stretched in real relationships. We're talking about connection is a leadership strategy. So if you want to scale influence, if you want to scale your impact, or if you want to scale performance this year, start with connection. Don't start with outcomes. Start with connection. When you have real connection, the outcomes will follow. because connection stabilizes growth. Connection protects and builds culture. Connection sustains momentum. So focus on connection and not outcomes. So as we close, here's the reflection. Here's something that I want you to consider as we end this episode. I want you to think and reflect. Where in your leadership path or your leadership journey do you need to lean into connection more with more intent, more intentionality? Where do you need to learn or to lean in to connection with greater intent? And that's something to really think about. That's something to reflect on. I would love to hear from you. You can put it in the chat, or you can send us an email, info@jackmangroupllc.com. That's info@jackmangroupllc.com. But I would love to hear what your thoughts are. So, as you consider that, as you reflect on that, is it with your team? Is it with a key relationship? Is it with your organization? Or maybe it is with your family. But consider and reflect on that question that was asked. Because, see, here's the key as we end. Strategy without connection eventually breaks. I'll say that again. Strategy without connection eventually breaks. But connection, it multiplies everything. Folks, I hope this was helpful. If you've gotten anything from this episode, again, like the episode, share it with someone. And if you would like us to assist you or your team as it relates to leadership training or coaching, I encourage to contact us. Contact us at the Jackman Group LLC. You can go to our website, jackmangroupllc.com, or you can contact us info@jackmangroupllc.com. We would love to hear from you. And let us know, how can we start a dialogue? And how can we assist you and your team to become more impactful leaders? Because leadership is not about you, folks. Leadership is not about you. And I know for some people that may be a revelation, that may upset some people, and that's okay. Because it's about development and growth. Leadership is not about you, it's about who you influence. And connection, that's about influence. It's about influence that lasts. So thank you for being here. We will continue. This is a part 1 of our 3-part series talking about effective leadership. This one was connection is a leadership strategy. We'll talk about relationships. We'll talk about connection. So this was part 1. We have 2 other parts. So join me for part 2 next week as we continue in our journey, in your journey to become a more effective and more impactful leader. Folks, I want to thank you for being here. If this was helpful, again, share, like, make a comment, and we'll see you down the road. May God bless you and your family. Be safe. And if you are in the cold like I am, stay warm. We'll see you.